All right, Witchers, welcome back to the Witcher Lorecast. This is your host, Tom of Robots Town, and I'm back with Toasty of Toasterville. I think it was Toasterton last time.
I'm still working on it. You know, it's in the works. I haven't settled on anything yet.
Yes. And
any ideas, throw them in the Discord.
Maybe. Well, you're the king of somewhere. But we figured that out last week. But yeah, we are live on twitch.tv/Robots Radio. We're also on YouTube, currently on the Robots Radio YouTube channel, and actually a few other places. We're actually live on Facebook, which nobody ever tunes in on Facebook, and on Periscope. So it's Twitter/Periscope. You can tune into us all sorts of places. So come join us. Come join us for the live show. We'd love to see the conversations happening in the live chat. And if you want to get in here early, you can always join us for the pre-show stuff, which usually is only available for our patrons. But if you join us for the live show, then you can join us during the pre-show chat. So, but anyway, we're here again, and we've been diving into characters, and we started last week with good old Geralt of Rivia. Or can you recite that really long name that Vesemir wouldn't let him use off the top of your head? Because I can't.
Off the top of my head.
Can you say it off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head.
Okay, you're looking it up.
I'm not reading it right now. Geralt, Roger, Eric, Duhot, Bellicart.
Oh my God, you looked that up really fast. That was amazing. Okay, you get props for that.
I just have to open up the other document on Google. That's just like two clicks, and bam, there it is.
All right. We should just call him that from now on. We should see if we can't like somehow get that to work into like a future storyline where there's some character who insists that is his true name or something, and that becomes like a side story. But anyway, this week,
so we need to make him a reoccurring character in like a Witcher like campaign, if we do a Witcher tabletop.
Oh, do you know what would be amazing is if there's another person in the world of the Witcher who looks uncannily like Geralt, who goes by that name instead, and who claims to be the true Geralt. That would be I could see that being like a side thing in one of the games, with the sense of humor that CD Projekt Red has and brings to some of the side quests and things. Anyway, we're back. We're moving on to another character, and this week we're talking about the hottest of the Granddaddy Witchers, good old Vesemir. And if you haven't seen the anime movie on Netflix about Vesemir, you need to go check it out. We talked about this a few weeks back when it came out. Very cool film. It breaks lore in a few ways, and we discussed that. But, you know, every time you take one of these IPs and you put it from a book into a movie or a movie into a game, they always kind of, I don't know, take things and move it in a different way. So there is that. But it's really cool, and you get to take a look at Vesemir's life before things. So this week, we're going to dive a little bit more into Vesemir. So where do we start, Toasty? How do we start this?
Started, again, with the same disclaimer as last time of we're going to kind of get up to the point to where the books start, which actually doesn't really matter because Vesemir is basically non-existent in the books. But that includes we won't be talking about any of the video game storyline either that involves Vesemir. So we'll be getting to a point.
Okay.
So, and we've talked about Nightmare of the Wolf a little bit, so we won't like go too much in detail. But there is going to be a part later on where we discuss that, and there's some pretty key differences, so that'll be interesting to talk about when we get to that.
Okay, so if you haven't seen Nightmare of the Wolf, the anime on Netflix, then there might be a few spoilers there, so just be aware of that. You don't have to have seen that though to be part of the discussion in this. Just be aware that we will be discussing some of the differences there. So all right, so let's kick this off. Where does this begin?
This is our pre-established canon, and by pre-established I mean before the release of any, well, specifically Nightmare of the Wolf, but just the Witcher cinematic universe is what we're going to call it at this point.
The Witcher cinematic universe.
The Witcher cinematic universe.
The Netflix Witcher cinematic universe. We can even say that.
Yes. So yes, this is what we know before any of that stuff. Vesemir is considered amongst the oldest Witchers remaining. Vesemir was born early enough to witness the construction of Kaer Morhen in the 11th century. His mentor and tutor was Barman.
That's pretty crazy, because when we see Kaer Morhen in the games and we hear about it in the books, it is already an old structure. You're nodding.
It's an old man.
Yeah.
Well, it is an old structure. Yeah. Sorry. Not great for an audio.
Our listeners
platform.
cannot hear the rattling inside your skull.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I feel attacked. Apparently,
I didn't mean that in a mean way, but
Tom's gonna take over the rest of the episode. I need to go recover. That was pretty. No, no, but yeah, I think it seems older because it is old, obviously, but I think it seems older because of the fact that like it's how much it's been through. Because we know it's been through 2 attacks at this point. So
that's true. It's been sieged. It's been damaged. So it does look, it looks older than maybe it actually is. And
most people would probably be familiar with it from The Witcher 3. So there's even another attack tacked onto that from The Witcher. So multiple attacks. So in the second half of the 12th century, Kaer Morhen was attacked by an enraged mob. Right into it. Bam. Was attacked by an enraged mob led by a group of mages and priests. Vesemir survived, either not present in the keep during the pogrom.
Thanks for the
wow. Sorry, that was really loud. I'm sorry, my volume was up too high. But thank you for the follow. Go on.
I'll restart this sentence. Vesemir survived, either not present in the keep during the pogrom or mistaken as dead by the mob as he lay unconscious among the corpses of his fellows. I know, we'll get to that later. While the pogrom was condemned, the school never regained its full functionality.
So this is kind of in the vagaries of history here.
Yes.
We don't have a sense of exactly what happened.
The very exact term known as vagaries.
Vagaries, yes.
Yeah. After the massacre, the school was run by Grandmaster Renz, with Vesemir as second in command, a fencing instructor and leader for the Witcher trainees, replacing Varen. At some point, he met Vicinna outside Kaer Morhen, a sorceress who decided to give her a child, a young boy named Geralt, to train as a Witcher. Vesemir became a father figure to Geralt, but treated all young Witchers with harsh affection.
Harsh affection.
Harsh affection.
Yes.
Great terminology.
Yeah, that's like every father who grew up during the like post World War II era was like, good job, kid. Like never told their children they loved them, but was just always like, all right, good work.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Apart from participating in the school's life, Vesemir also took some Witcher contracts. One of his famous deeds involved disenchanting the curse afflicting the Swan of Povis.
The Swan of Povis.
The Swan of Povis. I'm having a bit of difficulty. I think I remember that. Like some prince or some guy or something got turned into a swan and left at some like lake or something.
Swan Povis is the westernmost region, blah 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 blah.
I think I can't remember where it was mentioned in. I think it's mentioned in one of the books. He talks to the dude who used to be the Swan of Povis, or has like a flashback to talking to that guy about it. I don't even think he was a swan though. I think there was a funny little gag about the fact that he wasn't a swan. He was a much like more hideous bird, but because, you got to poeticize it, you got to call him a swan because that's way prettier and more romantic.
Yeah, I don't remember this. And it's hard to search for. I mean, I'm even putting it in quotes and the internet doesn't have a whole lot to say about it. So
I'll have to get back to people.
We'll have to dig this up.
Yep. In 1217, during the celebration of Salvine, the village of Fox Hollow in Toussaint was attacked by a horde of vampires led by Emile Regis Rolek Terzieff Godefroy. And if you're, I think a lot of people recognize that name. It's hard to forget.
Yeah.
A higher vampire, along with the villagers led by Germain, Vesemir managed to kick the vampires out of the village. The Witcher, however, knew that their victory was only temporary and that the vampires would strike again once they healed their wounds.
As vampires like to do.
Yes, vampires do like to heal.
And they don't really let go of grudges too well.
No, and it's hard to take care of a vampire because the only way to kill a higher vampire is to be killed by another higher vampire. So,
it's kind of a sticking point.
Yeah. He commanded the peasants to the castle of Tesham Mutna, where the higher Regis took shelter. Although Vesemir was injured in the clash, the peasants managed to capture the vampire. After chopping Regis into pieces, they buried his remains as deep as possible. While the treatment was insufficient to kill the higher vampire, it was more than enough to convince Regis to stop drinking blood and attacking the villagers.
Okay, stop chopping me into pieces. I'm good. Stop. Okay, I'll stop.
So just how OP is that? The point you could literally be chopped into little tiny bits and buried into like separate holes in the ground, like 6 feet deep or more. And it's just like, yeah, I'll get back eventually. Can you imagine is he aware during that period? So like, is he just like, is just the part of the face that was chopped up in his eye? Is that just down in the ground, just like blinking, like
looking around, like
this will take a while.
Well, this sucks. Yeah. Well, I guess the question is like, how do you get all of your parts back together?
I think he just regens from a single part, if I remember correctly. I think unless a higher vampire is killed by another higher vampire, they can regen from even the smallest piece of flesh, basically. Is
it the largest of the remaining pieces that starts regenerating?
I assume it's probably something to do with the vital organ, probably the brain.
Like, what if the brain is chopped into lots of brain? Maybe the largest chunk of the brain starts regenerating, or the heart or something like that, or the liver. Yeah. What if it's something really dumb, like the baby toe of your left foot, and the body just starts regenerating from the baby toe of your left foot? That could be it. Or your butt. I mean, what if it's just your butt?
It's your butt?
Yeah, like wherever your butt ends up, your body just regenerates from the butt out.
Well, what part? Like the gluteus maximus, the gluteus medius?
Like, no, your butthole. Like,
oh, your butthole. Oh my God.
That's where your body regenerates from. What if that's it?
It sounds like a real shitty situation.
Literally. It's a literally shitty situation.
Yeah. Also, do you have to use the bathroom while you're in?
Well, no, you're not eating anything. So yeah, you're not digesting things. So yeah, of course you don't. Unless something crawls through you while you're in the ground like a worm or something.
Yeah, that's why everyone comes here, for the deepest conversations about
for the real deep lore,
the real deep lore, the resurrection of vampires and where it starts.
Resurrection of vampire butts. Yes.
Yeah. Resurrection of vampire butts.
We need an artist. If any of you guys are artists and want us to draw us a vampire resurrecting from its butt, and to put that on a t-shirt, we could put that on the store, and then you guys could buy vampire butt resurrection shirts. All right, let's move on. Moving on with the lore.
I feel like I lost brain cells on that one time. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think maybe we all did. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, everyone.
Everyone just left. There's nobody watching anymore.
Nobody watches. Nobody's listening.
Where was I even? For some time, the School of the Wolf was funded by the monarchs of Kaidwin alongside the School of the Cat. Vesemir had to reluctantly cooperate with Mozart, I don't know, the fencing master of the cats. Originally not liking each other, the two grew to understand one another. The cooperation between the schools unfortunately had to cease as the cat grandmaster Trace and a group of students had secretly conspired with King Radowit II against the wolves. We talked about this one a lot.
Freaking King Radowit, like he just keeps causing problems. He causes so many problems.
The secret of this podcast is that I absolutely hate it. So that's the reason why I mention it like every episode.
He just like,
I want everyone to know that King Radowit is the biggest a-hole in
such a douche.
So yeah. A week before the planned tournament between the schools, Vesemir and Guzart were put under arrest by the king's men, thus spared from the massacre that occurred. During the tournament, King Radowit betrayed both cats and wolves, ordering his soldiers to shoot them all, resolving both his budget problems and imagined threats to his power in a simple but effective way. And I have some issues with this a little bit.
Yeah.
So you plot this giant plot. You bring all this giant plot together, bring the cats and wolves together, take the effort to convince the cats to turn against the wolves, just to then turn against the cats. And a week before, you know that these two are starting to kind of like work together and like cooperate, which is what you don't want, obviously.
Right.
And you arrest them, and then we'll get to this part. Let them go. They are arrested and then they are released. You massacre a whole bunch of witchers, but you let these two go. I don't understand that logic at all.
Right. Maybe there was some pressure maybe there was some other pressure to do so. And we just don't have the story on that.
I mean, it may have been the point where they were like, well, there's not enough of them anyways. It's fine. But
yeah. Or there was some political pressure. Maybe there was some pushback. Like, okay, you've already done enough damage. Let these ones go, or something else going on.
I mean, yeah, maybe it's just weird. It's just weird because you have them like bound up. I'm assuming, and
or there was some monster trouble, and they just needed them to take care of the monster trouble.
Fair. Both masters, or technically acting grandmasters, since Trace and Rin's deaths, were released sometime later and allowed to rebuild the schools. Again, I guess because they didn't want to be completely defenseless against the monsters. I guess that's the explanation. Yeah. On the condition that the royal money would never be given to them again, and that the schools must operate alone and unfunded.
Yeah, it might be the kind of situation where they needed to weaken them because they were becoming too powerful and too much of a threat to the authority of the king. That might have been an issue, but they still knew that they needed them when push came to shove, because the monsters would then become a threat. It may have been a balancing act.
Maybe. The schools declined slowly, and the deaths of mage assistants and veteran witchers put a definite end to the wolf school by the late 1230s or early 1240s, as children were no longer trained there after that. So all the old guys died, and the knowledge of the formulas and mutagens were then lost. So during the winter of 12. Well, this is a little bit of a side romance. We got a little side romance, Vesemir.
Yeah, got a hot granddaddy Vesemir.
Yeah, this is him after what I would assume he is when he is the player. So I don't know. I guess maybe he's still a player. He's still got it going.
He's still got it.
During the winter of 1234. Once you got it,
you don't lose it.
While fulfilling a contract in Oxenford, Vesemir briefly dated young lady Minole. His names are names. After noticing each other, after noticing each other from afar, how romantic! Vesemir received a secret letter from the woman inviting him. Oh, so romantic! Romance, blossoming romance. The two had a tryst, which was unfortunately interrupted by Minole's father, who'd learned of the affair.
Oh no!
Vesemir fled, leaving his gambeson behind in the process, and had an arrest warrant for him put out by the father.
Oh no!
Very romantic situation. So then, I gotta go.
Oh no! What's even more awkward about this is by this point he's probably like way older than her father anyway. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like. Yes. Nino Black says that happened to me a few times. Uh-oh. But yeah, like by this point he's probably over 100 years old. And the father of this young woman who spotted him from afar, because he probably doesn't look more than 40 or something, is probably this is her father, who's probably in his 40s or something like that. You know, like this is weird. This whole thing just starts getting awkward.
I think at this point he's over 200.
Over 200 freaking years old. I think
in the 1200s, I think that's what is considered the 13th century. So it's hard to tell. I know when, maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but I assume that he's definitely over 100 at this point.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yep. All right.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
This is a totally biffed episode, and we apologize. Even though the school ceased to function, Vesemir and the other Witchers used to spend winters at Kaer Morhen. He allowed some non-wolf Witchers, such as Cohen, but forbade the entrance for the renegades, as in the case of Bran, whose massacre at Yellow was exceptional even amongst the other cats. I don't know why I chuckled at that. Likely around 1242, Vesemir hosted Eskel's surprise child, Deidre, Adamain, at the keep, which prompted a diplomatic conflict with her brother and King Hinsalt's vassal, Merwin Adamain. Deidre was the first in line to the throne, which did not suit her brother well. Ultimately, the princess left the castle, however, not without leaving a disfiguring scar on Eskel's face.
So that's how he got the scar.
That's how he got the scar. He spited a woman. You think of all these situations where he's fighting monsters, griffins and draconids and things, but no, a woman did it. So anyone that was curious,
it's always a woman.
Here you go.
It's always a woman.
It's always
a woman. Well, okay. Well, this stuff is always interesting because it helps tie things together, especially when you find out things like, oh, that's how Eskel got the scar in his face, that kind of stuff. Well, we're going to take a break for the mid part of the show where we get to thank our patrons and read out some of the reviews that you guys took the time to leave us. And what are we going to do when we come back? Can we hint at something coming up, Toasty?
So yeah, we can hint. Gosh, you make me come up with a hint on the spot. No.
Yeah. What are we going to cover next?
This is where it splits. So some of you may be wondering, the people who've seen Nightmare of the Wolf, was like, well, we know a bit about Vesemir that came before that. Why didn't Toasty mention it? That's a little strange. Mm-hmm. And the reason I didn't mention it is because I'm considering, and because there's discrepancies in the lore lining up, are not lining up properly, we are going to separate these two things. So we were talking about the pre-established canon, and we are now going to transition into what we referred to before as the Witcher Cinematic Universe, or Witcher Netflix Cinematic Universe.
WNCU.
Yeah, which for anyone that's familiar with Marvel, the Marvel Cinematic Universe does not follow the comics, so they separate them.
Own thing, right?
Yep.
It's highly influenced by the comics, but it is not the same thing as the comics.
Yep, and we are going to do the same thing with this because it essentially is the same.
Right. Cool. All right. Well, we'll be right back, and so don't go anywhere.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Mm-hmm. Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right, so this is the part of the show where we get to thank our patrons, and currently we have 3 patrons, so thank you to all 3 of you, and I'm just going to call you guys out again because you guys are awesome for being our first 3 patrons. So Mark 10 Gamer, Turbo Toboggan, and Ben of Temeria, thank you so much for helping to support the show, and me and Toasty, you are what helps us to do this every week, and we really do appreciate it. We have coming up again very soon, so this would be next week on the 27th, our patron chat episode, and so Ben of Temeria, if you'd like to join us again, we'd love to have you. Anybody who signs up as a Leshen tier patron, these are our tier 4 patrons, can join us for our end of the month chat episode. And so we'll be talking about whatever topic you guys would like to discuss. And you still have a week to sign up for that if you'd like to join us, or if any of the current patrons would like to upgrade to join Ben of Temeria and Toasty and I on that episode again. And if you'd like to do so, you can go to patreon.com/WitcherLorecast and check out all the different tiers and come join us. We'd love to have you. Also, we have some reviews and we've got 3 new ones this week. So thank you to those of you who are taking the time to go to Apple Podcasts and click on the 5 stars. And if you click on 5 stars and leave a rating or review and type in some text and stuff, then we will read it out on a future episode of the show. And Ben is in chat right now. Can't wait to talk to you guys again. Yeah, Ben, we're very much looking forward to it.
We're very excited.
Maybe we can talk about the event you went to where you dressed up and we saw those pictures with you with your double swords and your outfit and all stuff.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That would be a lot of fun. All right, so let's talk about some reviews. We have Scott If from the United States who writes, "Awesome show, 5 stars. Absolutely love this show. Can't wait for each episode to come out. If you are a Witcher fan, this is the show for you. It's such a large universe and these guys are covering it in a great way. Keep up the great work." Thanks so much, Scott. That's a wonderful review. That was very concise and very flattering. So thank you so much for that. Then we have the Wesbotron from Canada. Did we read this one before? Oh no! This is the one.
Is this the one that left us?
Yeah, he updated
stars?
it. Yeah, he updated it.
Modified it.
He's modified it, and he responded on Discord, and he said he was very happy that we read it out last time, and that we got his joke, and he thought it was hilarious the way we reacted to it, and he edited it and says it's 5 stars now. So thank you for updating it to 5 stars, and yes, we thought it was hilarious. So thank you so much for that. And then we have Josh Cordell from Great Britain, who writes, "Oh man, I can't wait to go back to Great Britain. Have you ever been to the UK or Great Britain or anywhere over there?"
No. The only other country I've ever been to is China.
Really? I've never been to China.
I've been to China. I was in China for like 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
It's very interesting.
Wow. Well, as a fan of The Witcher and like fantasy lore and those kinds of things, if ever you get a chance to go to a place like Europe where there are castles and things like that, you should take the opportunity because it is really cool to actually see like actual medieval structures and museums.
My fantasy
with
destination of choice is New Zealand.
New Zealand would be cool. But they don't have like medieval structures.
I know they don't have those, but I mean, they have Hobbiton, which of course, who wouldn't go for Hobbiton? And they also have like, I mean, I don't know, like the majority of Lord of the Rings was filmed in New Zealand, as well as,
right.
Like the Chronicles of Narnia stuff that they did. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, this place is just beautiful. Why would you I just want to go to just like look at it. Cause
the landscape looks
like the most beautiful location ever.
Yeah. The vistas and the different kinds of landscapes and things. But if ever you want to go to Europe, just check out all the castles and stuff. I would love to go back and see more of like middle parts of Europe, like Germany and then some of the other like central parts of Europe and see some of those castles. I want to go on like a scary castle tour. That's what I want to do. I want to see like really old, scary looking castles. But I have been to the UK and seen like, I don't know, some really cool old looking structures and things. It's very, very cool. And museums with like
castle,
actual like legitimate like chainmail and armor and swords and axes and old weapons and things. Very, very cool stuff. Anyway, so Josh Cordell writes, "Let me get my something oil." 5 stars. "Brilliant podcast, guys. I've watched the show, played the games, and I love the Witcher world. It's so brilliant to have you guys explain the lore. P.S. Vampires are my favorite." We talked a little bit about vampires this time. "When are you doing a show on them?" XXXX.
It's going to be a while.
It'll be a while.
Sorry to disappoint you, Josh, but it'll be a while. There's a lot of things to get through. And I feel like there's probably going to be quite a few things that come up before vampires.
Yes, but vampires as characters, like in this episode, are going to show up fairly commonly.
There's a mention. We mentioned the bestest vampire.
The bestest of the vampires.
Yeah, he's the bestest.
Yeah.
I mean, you may not agree with that, but I feel like Regis is the bestest.
He's up there. Yeah. Okay, so what if we take a little side route for maybe just an episode or two, since we're moving into Spooktober. Spooktober, not Pemptember. Spooktober's coming up next month. You think we could do like a little side route and do maybe some monster lore for just an episode or two, celebrating Spooktober?
You know, Tom, I think that sounds like a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
We got to talk, but I feel like I think if we're going to do Spooktober, we got to talk about the spookiest. We got to talk about the scariest monsters.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll figure something out. So thank you, Josh, for the 5-star review. We really do appreciate it. Maybe you've inspired us to talk about some creepy monsters.
I feel inspired. I feel especially inspired.
It might be fun to do, instead of like a whole series on each of the individual monsters, in like one big long, because there's so many monsters in Witcher lore. It might be fun to just kind of highlight a monster like once a month or like every so often, or maybe just do like Monster Month every year and just do a few through October, or maybe
a lot.
There is a lot.
I like the idea of doing one a month. I think it'd be cool, because I mean, people are here for the monsters just as much as the people.
It's true. Maybe we kick off a Monster of the Month in Spooktober, and then that becomes part of the regular rotation.
Which, by the way, this won't matter to anyone who's listening to the action, like a podcast later on like Apple or Spotify or whatever. But to everyone in our audience, our live audience right now, if you want to go hunt some werewolves, tonight is the night. It's the full moon, and that's the only time werewolves come out on the Monster Slayer. So if you're looking to fight some werewolves, you got to go do it now.
Go do it. Right now.
Well, I mean,
if you're listening live,
wait for the podcast to finish and then go do it.
Then go do it. Or watch us live on your phone in a little window on the app while also slaying monsters. You can do
that. Also works.
Double it up.
We will compromise with that as well.
Yeah, and just use lots of your roaming data, because we're worth it. Okay. Well, thank you for all the reviews. Thank you to our patrons. And as usual, you guys are the best. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, we'd love to answer your questions. Feel free to join us on the Robots Radio Discord, shoot us some messages on Twitter or wherever. And, you know, we do this because we want to nerd out about this stuff with the community. And that's why we're here. And so we hope that that's why you guys are here too. So just, you know, shoot us questions. We'd love to answer questions, help you guys along, and just be involved with this stuff with you guys. So come join us, and let's move on with the rest of the show. Here we go.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
All right, so now we get to the slightly confusing part where the lore gets a little bit mixed up, because we're moving into the, how did we say, Netflix Witcher cinematic universe? Is that what we said? Cinematic Netflix Witcher universe?
I at no point ever said that, but that's fine too. It just you can just flip all the words around. It doesn't matter whatever order they're in.
Whatever order they're in.
Universe, Netflix, cinematic Witcher. That works too.
I like
exactly.
That. Yeah. So the cinematic Witcher.
Yep. So from what we find out from Nightmare of the Wolf, which, spoiler alert, we are warning you now. There will be some spoilers for stuff that happens in Nightmare of the Wolf. I'll give you a second. All right. Vesemir was born into the role of a servant like his father and carried out duties on a Kaidwen estate to a noble family. However, even by 1107, he dreamed of fantasies and being rich beyond his wildest imagination. He also hung out with a fellow servant on the estate, Ileana, who he had a crush on.
Aww.
The lady of the estate had started to go insane, and so Vesemir and Ileana were sent to the market to buy blue gum to alleviate the madness. Wanting some honey cake, but having no money to do so, the two hatched a plan to steal the herb, with Vesemir causing a distraction to lure the merchant away from his stall by stealing some other goods, and ran to the cake stand, only to then lay down the merchant's goods while paying for a cake and leaving. The two then met back up to enjoy their success when they were approached by Deglin, who saw what they did. However, he wasn't interested in turning them in as much as meeting the ailing noblewoman, as he recognized what blue gum was for, but knew it was a monster causing the madness, something a witcher was more than suited to deal with, and also meant a good payout.
Right. So he saw an opportunity to cash in on this situation.
Yes. He'd heard about it. There was like he had when he walks up all menacing, like he whips out like a flyer or a notice or something from a notice board. So like he's seen the stuff, he knows. So he just was like, okay, they're getting blue gum. That must be they must be related to the situation.
Do you think it tastes like spearmint?
Probably. That sounds about right.
Probably spearmint.
Yeah. After bringing Deglin to the estate, who confirmed it was a mar, he began to lay out traps to get rid of it and told everyone to leave the room before he started the fight. Vesemir asked to stay in and watch, and Deglin allowed it, but ordered him to try and capture the Mar if he was going to be in the room. Despite it being a rather intense event and failing to capture the Mar alive, Vesemir was hooked, and on seeing how much money the Witcher had made, asked Deglin to take him to be trained as a Witcher. However, Deglin refused to do so, but gave Vesemir a few coins for his assistance before leaving. Toss a coin to your Witcher.
Yeah, here you go, kid. Thanks for the help.
Yeah, which, I mean, it's understandable because he did ask him. He was like, what about your little girlfriend? And Vesemir hesitated. And I think probably one of the most important things to being a Witcher is to not hesitate, because that just means death. Right. With the stuff that you go up against. Right.
And to not have any like worldly attachments that would cause those hesitations.
Yeah, that's fair too.
That's part of it. Yeah.
The next day, as Vesemir and Ileana hung out, he brought up wanting a better role in life than that of a servant. However, Ileana was content with her position, as they could be homeless and have no food at all. And her dreams of having a lake house were just that, a dream. Shortly after, as all the servants slept, Vesemir saw an elderly servant just returning to his cot from a long day's work, and resolved to leave to try and become a Witcher, leaving a cake at Ileana's cot as his goodbye as she slept. So he was like, yep, I'm done.
I'm out. I'm not doing the servant life. I'm going to be rich.
Yeah. And I'm just like thinking about, I didn't think about this when I was watching the movie, but as I was doing it, I was like, Ileana's very optimistic. She's like, our lives really suck, but it could be worse. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Like, I see that more as like being afraid. It's more of a motivation of fear than motivation of hope. Vesemir is motivated by the hope of achieving his dreams. She's motivated by the potential of the fear of what might happen if she doesn't stay where she is. Right. So she's frozen in place. And those seem to be the two differences.
Fair enough. So Vesemir's ambitious and she's not.
Right. Fear gets the best of her, so she doesn't seek to achieve. Whereas Vesemir, his hope and his aspirations overcome the fear of what might happen.
Which is kind of funny, because think about it, even those situations, she should be the one that like, and as we know, later on what happens in the movie or whatever, but normally situations like that, you don't go anywhere whenever you're too afraid to move. And the people that move usually go places. And I think it kind of ends up the opposite, because she becomes like a lady and marries a rich man and becomes part of the, she
kind of lucks out in a way. Because, being a woman, she is chosen for marriage by somebody in a greater station in life. So she marries upward, not due to anything other than just being picked by somebody who happens to be in a greater station,
And while we're over here, we're fans of Witchers. We like playing as a Witcher in the games and whatnot. Being a Witcher is not good. Like
it's not glamorous.
There's nothing great about it, really, except for like, rolling in the dough as Vesemir does when he's a youngin. So
but it's hard. It's hard and dangerous work, and it's very thankless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Vesemir soon made his way to Kaer Morhen and was taken in and trained alongside the other boys there, like Luca and Sven. However, he soon learned most didn't choose to go there like he had, but had been given to the school as a result of being a law of surprise child like Thomas. During one such trial, the boys were all sent into the Red Swamp and were quickly, that's what it's called, and were quickly attacked by monsters. This is the controversial part. Tom might get triggered. I don't know.
Well, if you want to hear our opinions about this, go back and listen to the episode.
Yeah, it's pretty stupid. I have thought about it. I have come to the conclusion. And while I still stand by what I said before of it being some sort of like pre-trial of the Forest Eyes thing or whatever, this is like the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, this version of this, there's no way you would ever expect anybody to make it through this alive. Never.
Yeah. Many of the boys were badly injured or killed, including Thomas, but Vesemir managed to survive, albeit wounded from the ordeal. As Vesemir wandered to the tree in the Great Hall where all the slain boys' medallions now hung, he picked one up and noticed it started to vibrate, indicating magic nearby. And I think this is specifically Thomas's medallion is what because there's a gash in it. You see it get gashed by a monster, and then he has that same one later. I'm pretty sure it's specifically Thomas's. That's why he picked it up.
Right. Right.
So it eventually led him to the basement where he discovered the secret laboratories. One of the school's mages, Rydrick, introduced himself as Vesemir came across a dead crossbreed in the room before revealing to the young boy that the mages in the lab held the mutagenic secrets to creating witchers. Deglin then showed up and accosted the mage for revealing this, but the mage merely noted witchers should know where they come from. As Deglin then informed Vesemir, a rider came by to drop off a letter for him. Vesemir angrily asked the Witcher if he knew many of them would die during the trials, and Deglin coldly informed him it's a numbers game before telling him to go read the letter before he burned it up.
Sketchy stuff going on.
Yeah, and so backpedaling a little bit, this is where, like, not to say any of the stuff that happened when he was like younger didn't happen, like that could be true. But as we talked about in before the mid break, Vesemir witnessed the construction of Kaer Morhen. So he was a Witcher before Kaer Morhen was ever built. Mm-hmm. But in this situation, he comes to Kaer Morhen as a child and before he's a Witcher, and Kaer Morhen's already a thing. It's already established, it's already set up, it's already got a ton of Witchers in it. So these are like some of the details that start to diverge, and it's not like a big thing, right? But that's, if you could see why I need to separate them, because now things start to conflict with each other.
A castle that big would have taken decades to construct.
Yeah. So, which is kind of why I think that maybe he's going to be a different age in the Netflix Witcher cinematic universe, because I mean, one, we know that at that point, if we were basing it off of like the pre-established canon, he would not look that good. Like, right, he would have been older. That's only like a 40-ish, 50-ish year difference that he goes from being sexy young man in his like late 20s to like old and like very old, wrinkled and everything. So it's like, that would be a weird progression. So I think that they've made him a lot younger.
Hey, you sexy young man. Nobody's ever said that to me, by the way.
I've never heard it. No one's ever called me that either. So.
Nobody ever says that to most men. Most men never get complimented ever. Just side note.
I get complimented a lot, but like normally the only time I've ever gotten something that like, I guess something not like you're a very attractive young man from a lady that was like 90 with a walker.
Yes. Yeah. Like that's who that's who gives men like their mothers and maybe their spouses, you know, like that's who compliments men. Anyway, go on.
Vesemir then left to go read the letter and learned it was from Ileana, who wrote to inform him the estate had fallen and that the old family they served had been killed during the attack, along with Vesemir's father. Ilyana had managed to escape, though, and was taken in by a family in Kaidwen who treated her well, including teaching her to read, write, and paint. She did, which I guess that's part of The Witcher. I guess we missed the part where he learned to read.
He would have been taught at Kaer Morhen, I would assume. In his
I
studies.
would assume so as well, but it's like, it doesn't seem like he's been there all that long. And like, but I mean, I guess she's had time to learn how to do this, which is funny to think that he gets the letter and he's like, I don't know how to weed. Just has to throw it away.
I don't know what this is.
I don't know what this is. He has to go ask Declan, like, hey, what's this letter say? Declan's just like, get out of here with that. I don't care. She then hoped Vesemir would find that he wanted what he wanted in life and move on like she had. Shortly after that, Vesemir and the remaining surviving boys were given the Witcher mutagens, and while more died, Vesemir survived and was transformed into a Witcher. When he reached adulthood, Vesemir excitedly set out on the path, quickly taking contract after contract and earning as much money as he possibly could, delighting his fellow Witchers. At one point in his travels, he made friends with Filavandrel and Fidel.
Yeah, he was good at what he did. Like this becomes very clear in the series, is that not only was he like this, handsome young Witcher guy with, was full of bravado, but like he was freaking good at it. Like his other Witchers were okay. Like they survived. They did their contracts, but he was driven, and he was also really freaking good at kicking monster butt. Like he was a go-to Witcher. He was the kind of Witcher who would like take a contract and he knew he could handle it. And most of the time it was like no problem. I mean,
it's understandable, right? Like he had anime superpowers while the rest of the Witchers don't. So like, true. It makes sense that he would be able to, kick more monster butt.
He'd jump like 30 feet in the air and do flips and stuff. And then he could use, like, he had basically Simon Belmont's whip
like
ability.
20 feet in the air off of building. He could super ard and super igni.
That's true.
No one else really did that. No one else really did that.
Yeah.
By 1165, despite being a Witcher for nearly 60 years, Vesemir had no interest in taking care of new recruits nor the inclination to train them, leaving that to other Witchers to handle while he earned all the gold he could find. On one trip back to Kaer Morhen, he came across Sugo, a young boy running for his life after witnessing the rest of his family being killed in front of him by a Leshen. And
a weird freaking looking Leshen too.
A weird mutated Leshen. That is the beginning of the Nightmare of the Wolf. So, and if you want to know any more about this, go watch it. It's good.
Go watch it. But that's his childhood stuff. And then it gets into his, like, the rest of the movie and him learning some lessons along the way and the friends that are made as part of the journey.
Yeah, the real lesson was the friends we lost along the way.
Yeah, all the friends he lost along the way. Because there's
all of them. Because I think it was all of them, but because he wasn't friends with the kids, so everyone else is just dead.
Yeah, then he made some friends. Well, I don't know if they were quite friends at the end, but he made some recruits, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. He wasn't friends with the recruits.
No.
No. So he lost all his actual friends.
Right. And then he just became like daddy, like Witcher daddy. Hot Witcher Daddy. Hot Witcher Daddy needs to be a dating game.
Yes. You just go around as Vesemir.
Hot Witcher Daddy, the dating game.
That's just the goal of the Netflix cinematic universe for The Witcher, is just hot Witchers. I mean, that's what we got. Henry Cavill for Geralt, and we got this hot animated Vesemir. So it's just Witcher Daddy Simulator, I guess.
Yeah, Hot Witcher Daddy. This is the dating sim. There you go.
Hot Witcher Daddy Dungeon, like that boyfriend dungeon.
Hot Witcher Daddy Dungeon. They would make so much money off of that. Absolutely. All right. So what are we doing next week? We've got our patron episode.
We got a patron episode.
Yeah, I guess we're talking with Ben of Temeria, who's here in chat with us, and anybody else who signs up in the next week before that episode starts. So if you want to join us, you're welcome to join us. And Ben, if you have some ideas of some topics you'd like to cover, then let us know. And we'll definitely ask you some questions about the event you went to and some of that stuff. Maybe we could even cover some of your favorite monsters and kind of prep for some monster discussion for Spooktober.
Yes.
That could be fun.
Early Spooktober.
Spooptober. Spoop with a P.
Spooptober?
Yeah,
but this is the Witcher universe. It's going to get downright spook. You have to use the K for it. It's pretty scary.
I would add just extra O's. Spooptober.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spooptober. Ooh. So anyway, you got anything else going on, Toasty, before we head out?
Not much. Same old, same old. Go follow the Twitter, Witcher Lorecast. You can talk to me on the Discord if you want to, talk anything Witcher. I've been having some interesting talks. It seems like a bunch of the people are getting back into the Witcher. Witcher 3 playing it. We've been talking a little bit about builds and things that you can make and trying things out or whatnot. And if you want to play with me and Tom, we've been jumping back into Destiny 2 and doing stuff with the community. So if you're interested in Destiny 2 at all,
it's true.
Can hit us up in that particular channel on the Discord too.
Yeah, it's a great game. If you haven't played Destiny 2, it is very easy to jump into. It's on Xbox Game Pass. The Xbox Game Pass show is coming up next. If you want to just pick it up, it's on sale a lot. I think it's also free to just jump into for the original set of content, isn't it? Just free to pick up. I think it's free to pick up most places.
Yes. It's a free to play.
It's free to play
except for DLCs. Yeah,
except for the DLCs, which includes being able to do some of like the PvP and PvE like stuff.
Although some of the stuff you have like access to now after they dropped Beyond Light, I believe. Like I remember whenever I started playing a couple years ago that it was. You didn't have access to the middle tree on any of the supers. And now you do, even without Forsaken, because I haven't bought the DLCs yet on PC. So that's cool.
The game's gotten so much better. They've updated so many things. So you can get into it for free. There's cross-play across everything. So it doesn't matter if you're on Xbox or PlayStation or PC. Everybody can play together. We have a clan. It's set up on the Robots Radio Discord. So if you want to join us, just jump in there, send a kind of a message. You have a Bungie name. So you need to tell us what your Bungie name is. And then you can apply to the clan, or I can invite you to the clan. And there's a bunch of people on there just saying like, hey, I'm getting on tonight. If anyone wants to join me or, grind some gear or, play a dungeon or do some PvP or whatever. And there's a bunch of us playing. So come join us. It's a really easy game to get together and cross-play and, get on some voice chat and just kind of play together with. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's a great place for us as a community to kind of get together and play stuff. Since we can't do it with The Witcher, at least we can, do space magic in Destiny too. Yep. So, hey.
Yep. Space magic. We're all space sorcerers over there.
Yeah. Space sorcerers. And every time we fight the, which the ones with all the fantasy names, like the wizards and what are they, with the knights and the wizards, and I don't remember all the names of the different kinds of aliens.
There's the Fallen.
It's not the Fallen are like the messed up versions of everybody.
The
Taken?
Is it the Hive?
The Hive are the ones that run at
Hive?
you.
Yeah.
Is it the Taken?
Taken, yeah.
The Taken.
Yeah.
And they have the wizards and they float around. They've got the shields. Every time we fight a wizard, I yell, "Kill the wizard!" For some reason,
they usually are the hardest ones in the situation. Right. So we got to kill them first.
You got it right. That's the point. It's like anytime you see a wizard, you have to like point it out and be like, "Kill the wizard!" You got to take out that freaking wizard.
I'm Titan boy, so wizards are nothing to me.
Yeah.
I just punch them.
I play a warlock. So I use the, most of the time I use the electricity path and I laser beam everything.
I have been using, I have the best build for using like the pyro stuff on my Titan,
So
but the
like
most fun Titan
things?
ability in my opinion is the middle branch on Arc, where you basically are Doomfist from Overwatch. and you jump up in the air and you just fly. It just makes you fly, and you can fly like super far. And if you go angle towards the ground and hit the ground, it's just super electric slam, and it's really cool.
Like Thor with his hammer.
Yes, yeah. Actually, well,
yeah, you're like.
But then there's like a ground pound for like your regular melee. It's just super fun to just go around, just mega punch everything.
Yeah, just mega punch all the things. Yeah. So anyway, we're having a lot of fun. Come join us. We'd love to have you guys play games with us. And
that's what I'm not allowed to say anything, I don't think yet, but there may be something coming soonish that I'm going to be a part of. So, I don't want to say anything if they're not ready for me to say anything.
That's super vague.
But let's just say I'll be involved with another podcast at some point in the future, near future.
Does it have anything to do with The Witcher?
Things. It does not.
Does it have anything to do with another Witcher type side property?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to reveal too much. I don't know if they've. All right. I guess they've announced it, but they haven't set a time, so I don't want to
talk about it if it's announced.
Okay, well, they haven't announced my relation with it, but I think our friends over at the. Well, they have multiple podcasts at this point with the Cyberpunk podcast,
Fumbling 4,
the Fumbling 4, and the Almighty Crit, all that stuff. Talking about doing an Avatar, The Last Airbender.
Not Avatar, the stupid blue people on the planet Pandora.
No,
that's the most
we're talking about the good Avatar
movie thing ever.
No, the good of it.
Can you tell Avatar. That I don't? I think that stuff is super dumb. But no, the good Avatar.
I never watched it.
I never watched it either, but it's just so freaking generic. It's like Pocahontas in space. They named the freaking planet Pandora. Give me a break. The series is called Avatar. What the crap?
Yeah.
Anyway,
but this is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
The Last Airbender. That's much better. Airbending.
Yeah,
that's freaking cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've recently released the Avatar Legends, the tabletop version, and they're going to do a show, and I'm going to be involved because if there's anything that I love more than The Witcher, it is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
What? You love it more than The Witcher?
It's so good.
It's because you're so young. It's because you found it when you were like 12. It's a childhood love.
Younger.
It's a childhood love. That's
Remember, I'm not very old, Tom.
You're not very old.
I'm not very old.
This is a childhood love for you. That's what
I think it came out in like 2005 or something. Yeah, and I found it like immediately.
Yeah, this is like a childhood love.
It's really good. It holds up regardless.
I've seen it. My son is a big fan of the Avatar stuff. I've watched stuff with him.
Go rewatch it.
I've watched it. I've watched stuff. Dude, the series gets really good towards the end. Like, it's one of those shows that gets better and better as it goes. Absolutely.
I disagree because book 2 is my favorite book out of the whole thing. I think it's the best book.
Like the animation improves. That stuff gets better.
I don't care about the animation.
The animation's good.
The animation is good, interesting. But no, the whole storyline of book 2 is great. It's a lot of mature, and there's a lot of mature concepts in there too.
All right. Well, we'll debate this offline. But
who the heck talks about brainwash for a kid's show? It's not a kid's show, Tom.
Bloodbending, man. Bloodbending's messed up. That's messed up.
That was pretty crazy too. That is, Come on. I'll give you that one.
That's pretty messed up stuff. All right. Anyway, but that's really cool though. I'm glad you guys will be talking about that stuff. That's really exciting. But yeah, go check that stuff when it comes out. Let's see. Do we have anything else going on? We got the Xbox Game Pass show coming up next. You don't have to be part of the Xbox Game Pass show. You don't even have to have an Xbox because these games come out all sorts of places. And if you're just into hearing about new games that are coming out, then come hang out with us in about 25 minutes, and we're going to be talking about some of the new games that came out, including a game called Superliminal, which is like a super mind-bendy puzzly game where like you can change the sizes of things that you pick up by placing them down and where they look like they're at a distance, and then they become bigger and smaller. It's super weird.
I straight up thought you were about to say which is like superliminal, and I was like,
which is like superliminal.
It's like superliminal, bro.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that on the next show. So it's going to be really, really cool. But yeah, come join us for that. We've got all sorts of fun things going on. And if you haven't checked out, learn about SCP Foundation. That is a show that I have where I have a robot, a little bot friend, my SCP bot, Kevin, talking about the SCP files all in order. And Kevin he's just a lonely little bot. He just wants to be your friend.
And I will just apologize to everyone that's already clicked off of this podcast. I apologize for all the tangents we went on today. We were pretty
it's fun. It's fine.
Pretty goofy today.
It's fine. People
this
like
is
the
tangents. Most off that we've ever done.
Yeah, we're good. But thank you guys for tuning in. You guys know how to get a hold of us. We'll talk to you next week. We'll see you, and hopefully we'll see you during the live show. It's so fun to have you guys here during the live show, and we'll stay tuned. I'll be back in about 25 minutes. So see you guys in a bit. Later.
Bye.
Oh, don't we have a sign off thing?
It doesn't matter. They've already clicked off.
No. Do it. Do the sign off thing. Do it.
And until next time, to my fellow witches, stay safe on the path.
See you later.
Thanks for tuning in to the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.